Mark Cuban went on Fox Business Network, and he made like a peak horseshoe theory comparison. Take a look.
You make a good point, because the other day Bernie Sanders said there should be no billionaires.
Yeah.
There should be. I mean, what do we want? Do we want the billionaires to go to Europe, to go to China? I mean, already
Look,
we're
I'm not leaving. No matter how much you tax me, I'm not leaving this country, right?
But
So I don't care.
It's immoral for billionaires.
Yeah, look, everybody's getting very Trumpian these days, right? Donald Trump was brilliant at looking at his base and saying, what group of people are they not going to care about that I can pick on? Now Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have picked up that skill, right? And they said, billionaires, our base, let's throw them under the bus, because no one's going to stand up and support them. So, Elizabeth Warren is becoming very Trumpian, and she's taking a big page out of the Trump playbook.
Saying we're going to tax billionaires slightly more than we already do is akin to Donald Trump targeting Muslims and targeting immigrants. That's the claim. That's the claim here from Mark Cuban. My response to that is, come on, dog. Come on, man. It's the old, pity the oppressed billionaire routine. Did you know there were billionaires on TV crying within the past couple weeks? Crying. This is how they react to a wealth tax. By the way, Bernie's wealth tax and Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax, billionaires still remain billionaires. I know that Bernie tweeted there should be no such thing as billionaires, but just so you know, his wealth tax proposal allows billionaires to still be multi-billionaires. Just so you know. So he's actually not doing a 100% tax on all net worth above $1 billion. Just so you know, because I feel like that's an important fact to put out there. But these guys have this deep, profound victim complex. This idea that, they're under assault, they're under attack. Let me explain something to you. Under no proposal that has ever existed in American history would you not be okay. And also, as I've said 1,000 times on this show, and I'll say 1,000 times more, we don't live in a meritocracy. Now, Mark Cuban, to his credit, at a different part in this clip that you didn't see, does say, hey, I got a little lucky to have all the money I have. He says, yeah, hard work and all that stuff, that's true too, but I also got lucky. So then, Mark, you understand that if it works that way, if you got a little lucky as well, that also works the other way. That there are people in this country who work 2 jobs or 3 jobs. There are people in this country who are trying desperately to make ends meet, and they can't pay the bills. And I've said it before, there are some people, some of the hardest working people I ever met live at or below the poverty line. That doesn't make sense to me. That means that system is broken. That means it's a failed system. When you have half of workers in this country making $30,000 a year or less, when you have 78% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, that's not a them problem. That's not an individual problem. That's a systemic problem. Especially when we have a situation where three people have more wealth than the bottom half of Americans combined. Did you hear me? 3 people have more wealth than the bottom half of Americans combined. Bill Gates, I think Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos. Those 3 together have more than half of Americans combined. They didn't just work hard. It's not ooh, they made it in a system that makes perfect sense. No, it's actually a ridiculous system, and the rules are rigged in favor of the rich and against regular people, and the whole point of Bernie Sanders is to come along and say, hey, how about we unrig the rules and actually make it a hell of a lot more fair than it is, and make it actually make sense? Guys, just so you know, just so everybody understands, and he brought up Elizabeth Warren more times than Bernie. Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax is 2% on wealth above $50 million. 2% on wealth above $50 million. It is unfathomable that anybody would complain about that at all. 2% on all wealth over $50 million. Oh my God, they're such crybabies. They're such crybabies. Donald Trump looks at marginalized communities and viciously and ruthlessly puts them down and wants to use public policy against them. That's what Donald Trump does. When he says a total and complete shutdown of Muslims coming into this country, that's a bigoted policy. That's actual oppression. It's saying to 1 billion people, none of you are welcome here because Al-Qaeda exists. I don't care that they're 0.00001% of your group. You're all roughly the same. You're all roughly the same. Some Turkish grandmother and an Al-Qaeda fighter, same thing. total and complete shutdown of Muslims. That's deep bigotry and intolerance. When Elizabeth Warren says a 2% tax on net worth above $50 million, that's not bigotry, that's not intolerance, that's intelligence. Same with Bernie's, and Bernie's goes a little bit further, and of course it's the plan that I prefer because it goes a little bit further. But it's still, when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's still pretty kind to billionaires. So it says a lot that's peak horseshoe theory right there. Oh, the far left and the far right are the same because, the right wants to not allow in immigrants and ban all Muslims from coming to the country, and the left wants to, tax billionaires slightly more so we can provide people with health care and education and a decent life. Those aren't remotely the same. In fact, they're polar opposites.